The dining room at the Lardon restaurant in downtown Manhattan exuded opulence. Crystal chandeliers illuminated the space with a warm glow, and the soft murmur of sophisticated conversation floated through the atmosphere. The restaurant served as a sanctuary for New York's elite, where power brokers finalized agreements over caviar and vintage wines. However, on this specific evening, the lavish ambiance would become the setting for a lesson in humility so profound that it would resonate through the lives of all those present. Beverly Harper, a woman who radiated wealth and entitlement, entered the restaurant as if she owned it, dressed in a sleek black designer gown and adorned with glittering diamonds. She was the type of person who viewed others as mere stepping stones in her journey. Her piercing gaze scanned the room before settling on her reserved table by the window. As Beverly took her seat, she snapped her fingers, instantly capturing the attention of Keisha, a young black waitress diligently working to meet the demands of the affluent clientele. Taking a deep breath, Keisha approached Beverly's table, balancing her tray with care and offering a polite greeting. "Welcome to Le Jardin. May I start you off with a drink?" Beverly barely acknowledged her. "You took long enough. Do they teach you punctuality here, or is that a skill you completely lack?" she sneered. Keisha's face turned red, but she maintained her composure. "I apologize for the wait, ma'am. What can I get for you tonight?" "Champagne, the finest you have, and don't take all night," Beverly snapped, her tone sharp enough to cut. As Keisha hurried away, Beverly muttered loudly enough for nearby tables to hear, "It's hard to find decent help these days." What Beverly failed to realize was that someone sitting just one table away had been observing everything. This was no ordinary observer. It was Nathaniel Cross, a powerhouse attorney renowned for advocating civil rights and dismantling discrimination in all its forms. Unassuming in a tailored navy suit, Nathaniel had been quietly dining with his wife, watching the scene unfold with an expression that darkened by the moment. Keisha returned with the champagne, carefully pouring it into Beverly's glass before she could finish. Beverly waved her off dismissively as the bubbles spilled over the rim. "Honestly, do you even know how to pour properly?" Beverly snapped, glaring at Keisha. "Or is that too much for you?" Keisha's hand trembled slightly as she set the bottle down. "I'm sorry if I upset you, ma'am. Is there anything else I can bring you?" Beverly leaned back, her voice dripping with disdain. "What you can bring me is competence. Do you even understand what fine dining service looks like? Or did you just stumble in here from some fast food joint?" A hush fell over the nearby tables. Keisha's face burned with embarrassment, but she refused to let the tears welling in her eyes spill over. "I'll be back shortly to take your order," she managed, turning quickly to avoid further confrontation. From his table, Nathaniel exchanged a glance with his wife, Erica. Her eyes conveyed silent understanding. Something needed to be done. As Beverly's tirade continued, Nathaniel quietly stood and approached Keisha at the service station near the kitchen. He spoke softly but firmly. "Excuse me, miss, are you all right?" Keisha looked up, startled by the kindness in his voice. "Yes, sir. I'm fine, thank you." "You shouldn't have to endure treatment like that," Nathaniel said. "Don't worry, this won't go unnoticed." Keisha gave him a small, grateful nod before hurrying back to her duties. Nathaniel returned to his seat, but kept a watchful eye on Beverly. When Keisha brought out Beverly's meal, the wealthy woman's cruelty reached a peak. "What is this?" Beverly snapped, staring at her perfectly plated salmon dish as if it were garbage. "Are you trying to ruin my evening? This is undercooked. Do you even know how to do your job?" Keisha's voice wavered. "I'll have the chef prepare another plate, ma'am." "Don't bother. Just bring me the manager," Beverly demanded, raising her voice. "Clearly, you're not cut out for this line of work." Nathaniel had heard enough of him. He stood, commanding attention without raising his voice. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said, addressing Beverly directly. "I couldn't help but overhear. Is there a problem?" Beverly turned to him, her annoyance evident. "And who are you to ask, now?" "Nathaniel Cross," he said simply, his name sending a ripple of recognition through the room. Beverly's smug expression faltered. "And I believe you owe this young woman an apology." The restaurant fell silent as Beverly's gaze darted around, realizing all eyes were on her. An apology for what? For expecting decent service? Nathaniel's voice was calm but firm. "No, for treating someone with disrespect and cruelty. This young woman has shown you nothing but professionalism despite your unwarranted insults." Beverly's cheeks flushed with anger. "You have no idea who you're talking to." Nathaniel raised an eyebrow. "I know exactly who I'm talking to. A person who mistakes wealth for worth, and I'll remind you that everyone here has seen how you've behaved." Erica joined her husband, her voice gentle but resolute. "Kindness costs nothing, ma'am. Perhaps it's time to reevaluate what truly matters." Beverly sputtered, unsure how to respond, but before she could regain her composure, a man approached the table. The restaurant's owner, James Alden. "Good evening," James said, his tone polite but firm. "Is there an issue, Mr. Cross?" Nathaniel gestured toward Beverly. "No issue on my end, but I'd like to suggest this establishment rethink how it allows its staff to be treated." James nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. He turned to Beverly. "Ma'am, while we value your patronage, we cannot condone the mistreatment of our employees. If you're unhappy with the service, perhaps this isn't the right place for you." Beverly's jaw dropped. "You're asking me to leave?" "I'm suggesting," James replied, "that respect is non-negotiable here." Realizing she had no support, Beverly grabbed her purse and stormed out, her indignation trailing behind her. As the tension eased, Nathaniel turned to Keisha, who stood nearby, stunned. "You handled yourself with grace," he said. "Don't let anyone make you feel less than you are." Keisha's eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, sir. I'll never forget this." As Nathaniel and Erica left the restaurant, whispers filled the air, and diners exchanged knowing glances. It wasn't every day they witnessed someone of power using their influence to uplift rather than demean. That night, Keisha went home with a renewed sense of purpose, while Beverly's humiliating exit became the talk of the town. For Nathaniel Cross, it was just another day, living by the principle that true power lies in integrity and the courage to stand up for what is right. Sometimes life has a way of teaching lessons in the most unexpected places, even in the middle of a crowded restaurant. Months later, Beverly Harper sat in a courtroom, her polished facade replaced by a frazzled and desperate demeanor. She had been sued for fraudulent practices in her real estate firm, and the case had attracted significant media attention. As the courtroom doors swung open, her heart sank. Walking confidently to the bench was none other than Nathaniel Cross, the attorney representing the plaintiffs. Dressed in a sharp suit, his commanding presence filled the room. Beverly's face turned pale as their eyes met. "Good afternoon, Your Honor," Nathaniel said, his voice steady and authoritative. "We are prepared to proceed." Throughout the trial, Nathaniel meticulously presented evidence of Beverly's unethical practices, dismantling her defense with the same calm precision he had exhibited at the restaurant. The verdict was damning. Beverly was ordered to pay millions in damages and faced a permanent stain on her professional reputation. As the courtroom emptied, Beverly approached Nathaniel, her voice trembling. You knew this would happen, didn't you?" That night at the restaurant, Nathaniel regarded her with a measured look. "No, Mrs. Harper, but I did know one thing. How you treat people eventually comes back to you." Beverly watched as Nathaniel walked away, his words echoing in her mind. It was a lesson she would never forget, one taught not just in a courtroom, but in the moments she had dismissed as insignificant. For Nathaniel and Keisha, life had moved on. Keisha had received a promotion at Lardin, her resilience inspiring her colleagues. Nathaniel continued his work, a quiet force of justice in a world that desperately needed it. And Beverly Harper, once a symbol of unchecked privilege, was left to rebuild a life she had so recklessly dismantled.